All right, so for this quiz you're preparing for, remember that we're in chapter 13 of your textbook, so the vocab and the themes of the sentences that we're reading can be found in chapter 13. Start with vocab. Make sure you're really good with the vocab. That's what I always say. Remember that you can go into the OneNote, you can go to the content library up top, and you've got all these colorful tabs, and the blue one is vocab. This Excel, this vocab Excel that you can toggle to, open that up. It has all of your vocab for the whole year, really. So make sure that you click on the Chapter 13 tab if it's not already there. And you can see this first grouping of words before the little break here is all associated with the first two readings in the chapter about the bakery. So Prima Luce and In Pistrino. And then we have a separate set of words that went with the theater reading that we did. So lots of words there. It's a lot of words on the list, and so I made a slightly shorter list that isn't everything, isn't exhaustive, but is definitely the words you're going to want to start with, right? Like at a bare minimum, you need to know this bakery vocab: aqua, ara, pistrinum, pistor, panis, senex, uxor, anser, because that's what related to our story and enables us to talk about life in Pistrino, in the bakery, right? In Pistrino, in Ara Latte. Some other colony-related stuff, like the culture about the theater and the dogs lying in the streets and stuff. We had some of this vocab as well. Vocab you've absolutely got to know in order to understand most of what's being said. And since we focused on adjectives, this is just a really good basic list of adjectives that we probably knew most of them coming into this year and coming into this chapter. But definitely got to know those. So start with those, and once you know those, then you can move on to the vocab Excel. I'll try to post a Quizlet link in here too, okay? So start with the vocab, and then when you're pretty good at recognizing the vocab, reread through the stories, because using that vocab in context will help you, it'll make more sense when you're reading it in sentences. And on the quiz, it's always going to be in the form of a sentence. Right, so we'll have a little bit of context. It's also nice that on the online textbook, I can click on any of the words that I don't know. I'm looking at the picture, I got a girl, okay, she's standing at what? Oh, she's standing at the altar, right? And by rereading through the story, I'm also practicing my grammar in context, because the first grammar piece that we did here is this guy right here. The girl who is standing at the altar is Sabina, right? It's my bonus information, my relative clause, my qui quod relative clause referring back to the girl. The girl, bonus information, who is standing at the altar, and then finishing out my main clause is Sabina. Sabina walks through the wias of the colonia. That makes sense. That's what I see here. And in this picture, it looks like she sees some kids playing. And if I just look at this sentence, I might think that it's like the kids see, but I got to pay attention to my case endings, right? And liber os is accusative plural. If I'm not sure, I can click on it again. Okay, the children, and it is accusative plural. So they're the direct object, children and dogs. She sees, right? She sees the children and the dogs. The note even reminds me that the little que on the end means and. So she sees the children and the dogs. And then another set of relative clauses describing those children and dogs, right? The children, bonus information, who, or more specific information, really, like which kids? The kids who play in the street, ludo, ludere, to play, are loud, finishing out my main clause. The children are loud. What children? The children who play in the street, relative clause. The canes, which canes? The canes qui in via jacent. The dogs which are lying in via. What are they doing? Dormiant, right? In colonia est theatrum. The theatrum quod est in colonia, right? And since it's neuter, we'll say which, we won't say who, right? The theater which est in colonia est pulchrum, and pulchrum going with theatrum. And we sunt cives at servi. The servus qui, who does what? Panem portat. Okay, but what about the servus qui panem portat? What does he actually do? He Sabinam salutat. So my main sentence, the slave Sabinam salutat, servus Sabinam salutat, and specifically the slave who panem portat Sabinam salutat. So there might be a lot of servi in this picture. The one who panem portat Sabinam salutat, right? And again, we get a little conversation here introducing some new characters. we read about how to build a Roman town and how the Romans decided like where and why to build things. Okay, so that's a good reading to go back through in English, a little bit of culture here about the theater, a little bit about southern France and Roman buildings in that colony, and then a theater that looks like the one in our story, but is actually in North Africa. So kind of neat to read about real Roman buildings that still exist, including the theater at Arles that is still there. There's a note in your textbook on those relative clauses that we just went over, right? Your qui, your quai, your quod, referring like back to the gender, right? So masculine qui, feminine quai, neuter quod, and all of that is explained to you there. Some more practice sentences. Okay, that in Pistrino reading uses the same vocabulary with a little bit more because we have a goose come in, right? We meet our character, the Pistor Popillus, and his Uxor Rugosa. I mean, his Uxor Rugosa, his Uxor Letta, right, is her name. So reread through these stories. Look for those relative clauses. Look for adjectives describing things, right? So the Uxor, she's feminine, so it gets the adjective rugosa, right? And it gets the relative pronoun quai because feminine as well. The Anser is described as an animal, which is a neuter noun, an animal. And then this adjective ferox, so it's in the nominative case, it gets the nominative neuter form of the adjective, although that adjective is the same for all three genders, ferox, ferox, ferox. The animal ferox, which, since it's neuter, we get a quote, magnum clamorem toleba, which was raising a magnum clamorem, did what? What did the animal ferox do? It was spectabat, well, it was puellam spectabat intente. Get a little conversation, right? And we get our panem, which is masculine, and so it's calidum, using that masculine ending on my adjective. There's not notes in this chapter on your first, second declension adjectives and your third declension adjectives. That's why I put those video links in for you to this email. But also, you could go back to chapter 10 in the textbook, just open that one up instead, and read the notes on page 157 about first, well, this ribbon anyway, you don't have the paper book, but click on this for notes on first and second declension adjectives in chapter 10, as well as notes on third declension adjectives in chapter 10, or watch those videos if you haven't already, right? We got, let's see, probably more adjectives, probably some more relative clauses if I were reading in here. Oh, yeah, there's one. Alexander in Pistrinum cucurrit, he ran into the Pistrinum, the craftsman, right, the artisan, who erat per territus. Well, what did the artisan do? Weak spiraba. He was barely breathing. He was hardly breathing. Okay. So read those words, click on the ones you don't know, look for relative clauses, look for adjectives, do the same thing with the in theatro reading. It's a new vocab set, right? So in the Excel spreadsheet, it's that next set of words. And we also have some helpful readings on what Roman theater was like that we went through that give you some vocab as well for some of those other things that you'd see in a theater, like our word for actor is explained in this reading, and a patronus, and I think a chorus is mentioned in here too, as well as like the parts of the theater itself. Okay, so that vocab will be helpful as you go through and read this story again, right? And we got those plural relative pronouns in this story. So the old people who, plural, in primo gradus sedent sunt felices. The emblemata neuter plural quae sunt in scaenae fronte. Do you see them? Surely you see the mosaics. Quae sunt in scaenae fronte. And he says, no, mei oculi are not walidi. Those are a couple of good adjectives, right? Meus and walidus are good adjectives. Again, emblema is neuter. It looks feminine, but it's neuter. So she's like the emblema, he says the emblema which, using that neuter form of qui quae quod, which you are pointing out, videre non possum. We also got the accusative forms of them. So the chorus and the pantomime, or the chorus and the actor, whom, in the accusative plural, many spectators were expectabanting ardenter. What did they do? Scaenam intraverunt. The fabulat, here in the accusative case, which the chorus narrabat, which the chorus, the story which the chorus was telling, was about Pyramus and Thisbe. The first character, whom, in the accusative, the actor was playing was Pyramus. So again, seeing those accusative forms, and they're also in our grammar under qui, quae, quod, part 2. Remember, we've got notes on verbs, notes on qui, quae, quod, our noun adjective charts, nouns up the top, and then adjectives here, and then our qui, quae, quod, part 2, as well as a practice quiz, the one we went over in class, and the one for you to do on your own and check, okay? So all of those resources are there. Know your vocab, reread through your stories, look at the grammar, and see if you can't put it all together on the practice quiz.